सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामया सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु. Well, I said in Sanskrit, but what I said was very simple. May the whole world be happy. Easier said than done, but this is the import of what I said. May all living beings be happy. May everybody come to auspiciousness. Let us all remain without a trace of sorrow. This was the prayer. I have to explain, because even though I see many Indian faces here, it's out of fashion in India to know Sanskrit now, unfortunately. So, in fact, I find more Sanskrit chairs in the Berlin University than in our country. That is our state. So since we are sitting in the Jain temple here, I don't know how many Jains are here, but it doesn't matter. It's an ancient philosophy and a way of life in India. So I want to start with a story which actually comes from ancient Jain sources, but which has been adapted by different traditions, including the Sufi tradition. And one of the people who was very fond of this particular story was the Jalaluddin Rumi, who wrote the Majnavi. It's a well-known Sufi. In recent times, not recent times, some time ago, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, you must have heard, many of you, was also very fond of the story. But it actually comes from Jain sources. And it is an important part of their philosophy, which is called Anekantavada. Anekantavada means there are different ways of looking at one thing. That's what it means. There is not one way of looking at things, there are different ways of looking at things. It's similar to what Alexander Pope said when in his poem, the difference is as great between the optic seeing as the object seen. This is the Anekantavada. So, the story, I'm sure many of you would have heard it, it's a very popular story, but the import of it may not have occurred. I don't know, maybe you know. This is the story of 3 blind men who went to find out what an elephant was. It is 2000 years old story. 3 blind men decided to, when I say blind, people who can't see. Unfortunately, there are lots of people whose eyes are very much intact but who cannot see. No, that's a different matter. So, 3 blind men went to see an elephant, explore an elephant. One of them touched the foot of the elephant, and decided that an elephant is like a pillar, like a big pillar with little mosaic-like protrusions at the bottom. And it was rough, and it was so big that you had to use both your hands to catch it. And also that you warned that if you go too near, you might come under it and get crushed. And this is his definition of an elephant. The other blind man touched the tail of the elephant. And he decided that the definition of an elephant is that it's like a big brush, like a broom, and that keeps moving constantly. And if you go too close, you might be slapped on your cheek with the bristles. And the third blind man touched the trunk of the elephant and decided that an elephant is like a rubber hose, which also keeps constantly moving. And if you go close, you can hear it making sounds. And again the warning, that if you do go too close, you might be caught up by it and smashed to the earth. Now these were the three definitions of an elephant by the three blind men. Believe me, they said what they actually felt. So, as happens most times all over the world, there was a big fight between the three to decide which is the right definition. So the fight went to the extent of physical fisticuffs and so on. It was at that time that a man who could actually see, who was not blind, that's what I mean. The Jain sources say that someone like a Tirthankara, whose eyes were open, who could see, who was not blind, walked in and asked them, what is this fight about? Why are you guys fighting? So they said, this is the elephant, this is the elephant, this is what the elephant is. So we don't agree with the definitions, so we are fighting among each other. He said, can you stop it, because we need to talk about this. He said, you're right, you're right, you're right too. They said, this can't be. Either I'm right and he's wrong, or he's right and I'm wrong. They said, no, you're right, you're right, you're right, all three of you. But in the absolute sense, you're wrong. Because what you define is as much as you can see of the elephant, as much as you can feel of the elephant. Elephant is that and much beyond. It's bigger than all that you can conceive of, all that you can think of, all the ideas that you have. Elephant is much bigger than all this. They said, how do you know? He said, because I can see. Now, it is based on this that the ancient Vedas said, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vedanti. That means there is one truth, and the wise may call it by different names. I wish the wise used the same name. We wouldn't have had the trouble now. Anyway, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vedanti, there is one truth. The wise call it by different names. Why? Because nobody can expect to see the whole. We can see part of it up to the level to which we have developed. Beyond that we can't see. So we can't say somebody else is wrong. He may be seeing or she may be seeing that. In the ultimate sense, the Vedas declare, and it is a fact, that one who has touched the infinite generally doesn't try to define. By virtue of having touched it, he becomes silent. The Upanishad says, Yad vacha na abhyutitam, that which words cannot describe, that is the truth. Nedam yad idam upasate, nothing that you worship here. So, that is the situation. So we can go to the truth as much as we can from our own side, from our own angle, but not try to define it and say this is the only right definition. Because in the ultimate experience, all definitions fall. It's only one reality. I want to tell you a little story. Oh, I already told you a story. Another story. Storytelling is the ancient art of presenting facts in an interesting manner. Everybody likes stories. There is the Brahma Sutra. Nobody wants to read the Brahma Sutra because it begins with Athato Brahma Jijnasa. Here begins the knowledge of the Brahman. You say, I don't want to know, but who is this Brahman? On the other hand, you go to the Bhagavad, beautiful stories. And it is said that the truth that is expressed in the Brahma Sutras is expressed and brought forth in beautiful form, accessible to all through the Bhagavad, through the stories, collection of stories. which is why I like to say stories. See, Jesus talks in parables because parables are easier understood than a lecture. So this story is about the great Adi Shankaracharya. I don't know if you have heard, I'm sure many of you know, that Adi Shankara was the founder of the school of Vedanta called, he was not the founder, he was the most important commentator on the Advaita philosophy. Please don't think that Advaita is the only interpretation of the Vedas. Ramanujacharya had Vasishtha Advaita. Madhva interpreted this as Dvaita. So there are many interpretations, but Shankara was the most prominent one that we know of, especially discussed and read more in the West, because his philosophy is close to monism. When Shankara was traveling in India, in a small village in Karnataka, the parents of a young boy came to him and said, "Sir, we have a young boy who is 7 years old, hasn't uttered a word, refusing to talk. He can't be persuaded to talk. He doesn't utter a word. When he's hungry, he does this. So can you come and see him? You're a great yogi, great saint. It may be possible that you touch him and bless him and he would start speaking." So they took him there. And the story is that Shankara saw this boy sitting in the corner of the room, squatting. So he went to him and said, "Why don't you speak?" And the boy replied, "About what?" That was his first sentence. So they waited, and he said, "Because the truth cannot be expressed in words, therefore whatever I express in words has to be the false. So I decided not to speak. What do you say?" And Shankara appointed him as his successor in that particular area and called him Hastamalaka. Hastamalaka means one who had the entire knowledge of Vedanta in the palm of his hand, like an amalka fruit, like a gooseberry. So this is the situation. So actually, my sitting here and talking serves no purpose. Or can we put it that way? All I am trying to say is there are different ways of looking at the truth. Ultimately, one thing is very clear. Somebody may describe truth as only one and that the world does not exist, as Advaita does. You know the philosophy of Advaita, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. The world is an illusion, the only Brahman is. It could also be like somebody else says, well, the world also exists, the Brahman also exists. They go together. You have to ultimately remove yourself from the clutches of the world before you touch the Brahman. This is another way of looking at it. So there are many ways of looking at it. But no commentator, no great saint, no great teacher, no great philosopher has ever said that the mind does not need purification. Everybody says the same. So I'm saying, whatever be your theory, when you touch the truth, you can decide for yourself which is right. No point in theorizing right now. But everybody agrees that to go there, one has to purify oneself. One has to purify means to be able to live with restraint, to be able to control your emotions like anger, jealousy, hatred, and so on. Everybody agrees to this. No teacher has disagreed with this. Somebody has even gone to the extent of saying, bless them that curse you. Very difficult, not easy to practice. At least if you don't curse somebody, it's good enough. Shut up if you don't want to say a good word. Don't say bad words. So the purification of the mind is the spiritual journey, so that when the mind becomes absolutely clear and pure and tranquil, then one gets to know, at least one gets to touch a small part of the truth. Let's say the hem of the garment of truth, if you want to put it that way. And once it is touched, I think then the progress becomes simple. Till then, there is no shortcut, there is no way out, there are no magic techniques. Yeah, there are some ways of centering your mind. Yeah, I understand. From traditions have given us many ways to center our mind, but there is no shortcut. At the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali say, Nairantariya Abhyasena, regular practice is essential. Regular practice doesn't mean just sitting down and practicing a technique. More important than that is the regular practice of restraint in this world. We're not saying you shouldn't indulge, but there should be a restraint. Usually we are slaves of the mind. We should become masters of our mind and clear our mind from the negative feelings of hatred and anger and jealousy. Among these, I think jealousy is the worst. Because jealousy doesn't seem to have any logic whatsoever. Somebody is happy and I'm unhappy. What for? I've always thought about this. Somebody hits me and I'm angry. Okay, I can understand. Of course, it's not good. You try to cut it out. But jealousy, somebody is driving a BMW and I feel bad pain in the pit of my tummy. Why? He looks good in his car. He's happy. So why don't we be happy? No. So this purification of the mind. Naresh, I don't have an eye on your BMW. So this clearing of the mind, making the mind quiet and tranquil. Now this is the whole spiritual journey, and when the mind becomes quiet, then the inner self is reflected. And by its very nature, the inner self is blissful. And nobody has any claim over it. Everybody has the inner self. If I have an inner self, certainly you must be having one. I can't say only I have an inner self which is blissful. Well, you have an inner self, whether you feel the bliss or not, depends on how much close you have gone to it and how much the mind has been calmed and quietened. Now that brings us to yoga. Everybody nowadays knows yoga. In Hollywood, you find everybody in different postures. Yoga is so popular. And the more important the teacher, the more you pay. And it is interesting. I went to Wisconsin once and they asked me, they said they were practitioners of Ashtanga Yoga. So I said, great. So I said, first question, who is the founder of Ashtanga Yoga? Ashtanga Yoga, anybody knows? I have several hands up. No, several hands were up there in Wisconsin. And I said, yes. And they said, V.K.S. Iyengar, founder of Ashtanga Yoga. I said, of course. So I said, V.K.S. Iyengar was a great teacher of Ashtanga Yoga. Okay, I understand that. But Ashtanga Yoga is an ancient science which was first put in proper form by Patanjali. And nobody even knows about Patanjali because it kind of appears prehistoric. Because when you look at Patanjali in any image, you will see he's half snake and half man. So it couldn't have been in recent history. We never had half snakes and half men. So, well, I believe there were at one point, but not now. So, the definition of yoga, when you say yoga, it doesn't mean just your postures. This is why I'm talking about it. Yoga doesn't mean postures. Yoga doesn't mean just to get good health. Yoga is not meant only for the body. So what is yoga? Now Patanjali defines yoga as yogas chitta vritti nirodha, which means yoga is the controlling, restraining and calming down of all the vrittis of the mind, of the chitta. When you say vrittis, it means all the distractions. It's not as if you're trying to become a blank. Somewhere along the line, people are working hard towards thoughtless state. You don't have to work hard to get a thoughtless state. You just need to hit your head with a crowbar. There is no thoughtless state, please. There is a state when the mind has become absolutely quiet. But there is awareness. If the awareness also disappears, then it is unconsciousness. You can as well be in a coma. Nobody is aiming so hard to become unconscious, please. We're trying to reach the essence of consciousness. So, yogas chitta vritti nirodha means yoga is the practice by which the distractions of the mind stuff are removed. What happens after that? Only the practitioner knows. What happens after that is when the mind has become absolutely free of distractions, there remains only the witness, which is called the Purusha. And that by its intrinsic nature, by its own, is blissful, calm, tranquil and peaceful. So that brings us to this. What are we all looking for in this world? What are we looking for? It's a simple question. Are we looking for sorrow or are we looking for happiness? Hey, I'm so surprised to see Gauri sitting here. I thought she is sitting in Chennai. Both of you. So what are we looking for? Are we looking for sorrow? Are we looking for happiness? I mean, everybody knows it's such a simple question. Everybody seeks peace, tranquility, happiness, and all that we do on this earth is to find that somehow. Only thing is, we think that by grasping and collecting and gathering objects of the outside world, we'll get there. That's the only problem here. When we realize it's not so, then we are at peace. I'm not saying you shouldn't have things, please. I'm reminded of a story somebody told me. There was this villager lying on a charpai. You know what is a charpai? In the villages in the north, they have a cot which is made of just 4 legs and ropes strung to lie down. A bed, simple bed. So there was a villager lying on a simple bed. I don't know whether he was smoking a bidi, but definitely lying down happily with one leg over the other and enjoying the shade. And then goes an MBA to him. You know who's an MBA? I'm sure there are some here. Management guy goes to him and says, "Hey man, you're wasting your time." He says, "What?" "See, look, why are you just wasting your time? Get up and do this." Then he says, then you can do this, then you can do this, then you can have a big house, then you can have a comfortable bed, and then you can lie down and relax. He said, "Look, I'm relaxing, can you get out of here?" So it's ultimately to do with inside, with the mind. It's nothing to do with what you gather and what you have. To go to another story, I told this to you yesterday, day before, because it's interesting. It's worth repeating. You see a man, this is a scene usual in India in many places. It's a big peepal tree or something out there, or a banyan tree. And under that sits a fakir. You know what a fakir is? I mean, what's a fakir? A holy beggar, let's say. And He has a begging bowl in his hand because he doesn't know where his next meal is coming from. Wears a torn piece of cloth, sitting under the tree with great joy on his face. Nobody knows what he's enjoying. Either he's mad or he's free. And to take his blessings and to see him, there is a long line of people. Just like the parking lot, there are BMW, there are Mercs, there are for good measure a few Rolls Royces, silver ghost or whatever it's called, lined up to take blessings from this man who has nothing, who for his next meal needs a begging bowl. What are they seeking? Two things are clear. These guys, they have all that they have and they haven't found peace. This man has nothing and he has found peace. I'm not saying you should imitate him, it's not possible. I'm just giving you a story, the situation. So, what has he found which gives him peace and happiness, which the silver ghost hasn't given this guy? Because he's not come to the position where he can give up his ghost when he wants. In yoga, somebody is called a Mahatma if it is possible for him to give up his ghost at will when he wants. So, one starts looking at this question of the thing that we seek, which we call completeness, happiness, expansion. Fine. There's nothing wrong with that. This is what we seek, because we seek happiness. We want to get out of sorrow. Unfortunately, we don't get there. And when we think we have almost reached there, children have all got married, gone. I'm alone, now I'm retired, I'm going to meditate, gone. There was no cardiologist nearby, what could I do? So this is our life. So we are saying, what are you going to do with that? Just put some water. Actually, when the oil is over, it will go off, but you think. Did I say anything wrong? So, have you heard of a great saint called Kabir Das? Now, Kabir Das, who lived in Banaras, in his times he was a very courageous man. People told him that you live in Banaras and die in Banaras, you will definitely achieve moksha, freedom. So during the last years of his life, he deliberately decided to shift out of Kashi, out of Banaras, to see if he could achieve moksha somewhere else. And he died somewhere else. Anyway, Kabir Das has this beautiful story about the Kasturi Mriga. Kasturi Mriga means the musk deer. In the Himalayas, if you go towards upper Himalayas, there's a variety of deer which is called a musk deer. This is the deer that produces musk. It has a little bag of pouch under its tail where in a particular season musk is produced. So in India, musk is called Kasturi, so Kasturi Mriga. And that season when the musk is produced and when the beautiful fragrance spreads in the air, the poor deer, not knowing where the source of this fragrance is from, keeps looking for it everywhere in the forest. It pushes its snout into thorny bushes and gets bleeding, but still can't find out where the source of the fragrance is, not knowing that it comes from a pouch close to his ass. Kabir Das said, this is the situation of the human being. The happiness and peace and fulfillment and completeness, which is described in the Vedas as Purnamada Purnamidam, Purnat Purna, completeness. So that completeness is the quality of your innermost self by itself. You don't have to give it anything. It is so by itself, which is why it's called Satchitananda, which means it is the truth. Truth meaning Sat, meaning that which is when everything else is not there. Chit meaning it is consciousness, it's not material. And Ananda, its quality itself is blissfulness. That is your source, that is the center of your being, the consciousness. And not knowing that this happiness comes from there, one searches for it everywhere. Yeah, when you are in contact with an external object that you like, a little bit of this happiness is released from inside. And you say, aha, this is nice. So said Kabir, go to the source, to the fountain of this happiness. When you touch that, then your life search is finished. What you are seeking, you have found. And there, you don't have to worry about the income tax, internal revenue. You don't have to worry about dacoits. You don't have to worry about any such thing. Therefore, Jesus Christ, who I consider to have been a great yogi who walked the streets of Jerusalem, said, lay treasures in your heart where thieves do not break in and steal. When the great teachers like the Buddha, the Tirthankaras, Swami Vivekananda, Shankara, the great rishis of the Vedas, when they said, seek and you will find it inside yourself, they were talking about this essence. And fortunately, it belongs to everybody. There is no condition that I should give it to you. It's there in you. Just need to tap it a bit. And when that happens, then by itself, by oneself, one is filled with peace and tranquility so that you don't need anything from anybody else. So what do? You try to give than to receive. You want to share. Not share for profit, share. It overflows. And when the lotus blossoms, they say the bees come somehow. You don't have to put up a board and say, come. So here, I rest my argument. I feel that I am in a witness box and there are judges sitting around. So here I rest my argument. Now we leave it open for a few minutes, not too many. If you have any questions, I would prefer that you ask questions related to the subject. You can also ask other questions, but this would be the first preference, that you ask questions related to the subject on hand. You can ask me. Don't ask me questions on technology, I don't know anything. And politics, I don't know anything. Thank you.
I have one question. There seems to be great treasure of knowledge coming from Tantra, Mantra, Yantra, Yoga. On one side we have Himalayan yogis. There is social service, which you have done great, very applauding thing. And the truth is nothing. At the end of it, Brahman, Parabrahma Tattva is nothing. Where should we make our journey? It's individual choice, but what is your recommendation? Thank you.
Please don't say that the Brahman is nothing. It is everything. Since it's everything and we cannot define it, we say it is nothing. You know, when the Buddhists say shunya, don't think shunya is nothing. The definition of the word shunya means that which cannot be defined in any way by our words, that is not within the field of empirical experience, that which is so vast, and it is from that shunya that this whole world has come. So it cannot be nothing. It is like the zero Shunya is also called zero. If you have 1, the value of the 1 increases with as many zeros as you add. So 0 is not valueless. It's of tremendous value. So therefore, yeah, I can understand this when you said Brahman is nothing. But for that, to understand that, there are many ways, because different people are made in different ways. Some people are very devotional by nature. Some people like the mystery of Tantra and so on. Some like to go the Vedantic way and find out who am I. Ramana Maharshi in Tiruvannamalai didn't do anything. He simply said, who am I really? And tried to figure it out. And there is the practice of yoga by which your prana is brought together and made to ascend through a certain channel till it bursts forth into blissfulness and understanding. So there are many ways. However, what one should remember is that there is this urge in human beings to attain completeness, which is why we never stop at anything. If today I have something, I feel this is incomplete, I want something more. So it goes on till the end. We are never complete. I have knowledge, not enough, I need some more. So the great teachers, the rishis, have said that there is one point where when you touch, you are complete. You don't say, I need anything more. Now, if you say that Brahman is nothingness, I have to say something very important. You would probably discover it when you become nothing. Somebody asked a great yogi, what is the shortest cut to find the truth? He said, there is a cut, but it may not be the shortest cut. It may be short, but it is hard. He said, what? He said, cut the ego into 2. Very often, through too much knowledge also the ego becomes very strong and becomes a barrier to understanding, which sometimes a simple villager may find in no time. So when you say you become nothing, when you consider yourself as nothing, as the lowest of the low, perhaps it's possible then that highest of the high is revealed. So that nothing is very important when it deals with the mind. Very important. Actually we are nothing. We think we are many things. We conjure up so many images. What are we? Transitory things that come and go. Kabir Das said, the human being is like a bubble that appears on the water. One minute it's there and the next minute it's gone. In Hindi, if you speak, Pani kera budbuda, as manushya ki zaat, dekhat hi chip jayega jyon tara prabhat. Like the star that twinkles one moment and is gone the other. He said, human life is like a bubble that is here and gone tomorrow. So when one realizes this, then everything becomes quiet. And one is no more so aggressive, at least when you drive on the road. So
really appreciate your words about the goal of life. I want to request that since most of us here have demanding jobs and we are householders, can you advise us on how to find the truth in this life itself through any technique? What are your thoughts on that, please?
You said you're busy with many things to do. The man who is sitting in front of you is so busy. But then, before you get busy, it's a good idea to have small periods of solitude. I'm not saying every day, but if you are serious about the search, first one has to get serious about the search, which means you should say that I'm not satisfied with all this, not say, feel, and then I must find that. First step. That itself is a big step. When you have done that, you should say, I should start something by which I can every day fix my attention on the inner as opposed to the outer. What's that? Okay. That was like the Om. So, one has to decide that one has to find ways and means to center oneself at least for a few minutes every day. You start there. First there has to be the desire to find it. Then there has to be a decision taken voluntarily. People say that, oh, I am interested, but they think they are so intelligent that they can find it without doing anything. What about for thousands of years people have done sadhana? Are they idiots? So we have to sit. So we have to figure out how to do it. Every day you have to sit for a few minutes. It's not enough if you learn from books. Understand? It's your personal experience, right? And during that period, it's a good idea to have small periods of solitude. Well, busy executives take off some days, right, to go and rest so that when they come back, their mind works better. Consider this to be like that. And then start some practice by which the mind remains within. This is not the venue to initiate people into. I think this initiation is completely a wrong concept. According to me, initiate means to initiate the proceedings. Not some secret dark room where you whisper something into the ears. That's not initiation, that's making it look very mysterious. There's nothing so mysterious. The truth is like the sun that you see every day rise. It's equal to all. However, if you ask me, is there a simple way to start somewhere? I would say yes. There are two sides to this. One is in your daily life, try to follow some of the rules and regulations that are required for a sadhak, for a practitioner, of which the first one, according to the Yoga Sutras, is ahimsa. I won't go to the extent of the Jains and say ahimsa paramo dharmaha, the greatest dharma is. At least, as much as you can practice, try to live without hurting and causing injury to other living beings. Start there. Daily practice, I am saying. In daily life. Spiritual life is not just your personal practice. It also means how you live in this world. Yama niyamas are so important before you get to dhyana. So start with that and try to restrain yourself. Don't allow to go to extremes. Have some amount of restriction in everything that you do. If you look at something and you feel I'm going to completely fall for that, stop and say, no, I'm not doing it. So there has to be a certain amount of restraint. When I say non-violent ahimsa, it also means not to hurt people through words. If you slap somebody, it may be forgotten in 2 days. But if you call a man an idiot, he'll never forget it all his life. So words are very important. So watch out. I'm not saying we can do this 100%. If you could do all this 100%, you don't require any sadhana. You're already a free person. But try your best to practice as much as you can. Then, keep your food simple. Moderation is the key. Don't eat too much. Don't fast and starve yourself. This applies to everything. Don't sleep too much. Don't stay awake throughout the night. Moderation. Watch TV, but don't keep watching it throughout the night. Especially some things which attract people. Now, once you have decided that I'll do my best in this, then fix a time, preferably early in the morning, when you can sit down quietly and bring your mind within. Now it's not easy, because all our lives we have lived with our minds outside. It's not possible to bring them. So therefore, because the mind cannot remain without an occupation. So if you don't occupy it outside, you need to give it something to occupy itself inside. And the yogis have discovered that the best occupation for the mind within is to couple it with your breathing. Because that's going on anyway. You can't stop it even if you want to. When it stops, you're dead. Right? Okay, have you thought about this? The breath is so important, but we don't give any attention to it. You can live without food also for some days. You can live without water for some days. You can't live without breath for 1 minute. But we don't give any importance to it. When it stops, we are done. So, to this important aspect of your whole system, which is called prana, give complete attention for once. Give it some respect. So what do? Sit quietly. As you breathe in and breathe out, give complete attention to your breath. Normally we are not aware, it just happens. Become aware of it. You don't even have to control it. I'm saying to start with. You don't even have to control it. Just sit and watch it going in and going out. Now if you are fond of a mantra, you can repeat that in your mind as you inhale and as you exhale. Traditionally in our parampara, we chant hum when the breath goes in and sa when it goes out. So it becomes hum sa. So keep watching and chanting in. Don't control your breath. If you do that for a while, automatically at some point you will feel like giving a deep sigh. It happens. This is the time when you can believe that your mind is calming down. So stay with it for a while. As you go on doing this, you will begin to feel more and more blissful watching it. Once you get a taste of a little bit of tranquility and bliss, then you won't leave it. Stay with it. And do this every day without fail. Don't think that 1 week now I have reached samadhi, there's nothing. It's hard work. Keep doing it every day, regularly, day by day, till you actually feel that even in the midst of all circumstances, you are not disturbed. Which means, if somebody abuses you while you are trying to overtake him, your mind is not affected. Practically speaking. Or, are you married?
Not anymore.
I personally think that marriage is a wonderful thing because it really shows you where you stand. It cuts your ego to such small pieces that you can't pick it up afterwards.
I've had my ego clobbered the last.
I'm glad. It's a good thing. Please take that also a good thing. And bear no animosity against someone who has done it. It's not easy, I understand. It's not easy. But try to say that whoever has caused this was God in human form, come to teach me a lesson. You settled it then. You're at peace. Not easy, eh? Yes, sir. Yeah, ma'am.
Can you talk a little about karma, responsibility, and surrender, and the progression, and when you can get to that, when you fulfill the others, or can it be congruent in your life?
Can we put this in a small...
Karma, responsibility, surrender. Those three things.
Are there three things really?
No, what I'm saying, but in our human life, they feel like three.
Yeah, thank you. When you say responsibility, every human being has a responsibility to his immediate circle. I can understand that. But we also have a larger responsibility to humanity. So anything in my little circle that interferes with my larger responsibility to humanity should be given less importance than that. It's not easy. It takes time to figure this out. Now when you say surrender, I am a little worried when somebody is surrendering to somebody else. At some point you see that certain things in life happen whatever you do. So there's no point in getting worked up about it and stiffly resisting it. Try it for a while. If may work, may not work. You shouldn't say I didn't try, so you should. When you say now it's not working, then surrender to it. Let it be. But that should not prevent you from pursuing your spiritual goals. That's about all I can tell you, from my experience.
We talk about restraint. What helps restrain, or how to achieve that?
In this modern world that we live in, restraint is very difficult to come by, because we are faced with so many things that attract our sense organs. It's a fact. So many kinds of food, so many kinds of things that satisfy our eyes, our ears, you know, the whole gamut, you know it. So we are trying to say that the mind, which is always caught up with these, cannot turn back and find out its source. And if that is what we want to do, only if we want to do that, to turn back and go back to the source, then we should offer resistance to the mind when it tries to get caught up by things. So it can't be done all of a sudden 100%. So I said restrain. I didn't say cut off, I said restrain. So what do you mean by restrain is that if you think one day that I cannot eat without a particular, this is just a simple example, with a particular thing in my diet, say no, it's possible, let me try it out, and don't do it that day. If you feel that I have to watch 6 hours of TV every day, restrain it and make it 1 hour. When I say restrain, I'm saying put some control to your sense organs, so that the sense organs get the message that this guy is not going to let me free. He knows when to pull me in and when to let me go. So this restraint should be in everything. Plus your behavior with people, that is the place where you have to have the utmost restraint. It's quite possible that you meet people whom you don't like for various reasons. Now here, in this context, restraint means even though you don't like that person, don't exhibit it. Don't hate that person. Try to... I'm going to tell you a little story. When I started meditating, everything was fine. I had the advantage that my guru was with me, Babaji was with me. Everything was fine. The only problem was, often a person who caused me a lot of trouble during my youth, who really caused me a lot of trouble, suddenly when I was about to calm down, his image would appear before my eyes. Now this is terrible. How do you meditate? You want to, as if he is still in front of you, you want to throw stones, you get upset. So I told Babaji, actually I didn't tell him. I was meditating one day, trying hard, this fellow is in front of me. Babaji walked in and said, Kisko dekh raha hai? Who are you looking at? So I told him this. He said, okay. What do I do about it? I said, Babaji. So he said, look, next time, even some days it doesn't appear, right? I said, yeah, some days it doesn't appear. Some days it happens. Okay. He said, even on the days when it doesn't appear, visualize this man in front of you. I said, Babaji, but how will I meditate with this guy in front? He said, no, but you should do it. Visualize him in front of you and bow down before that figure. If it was actually that man, I would never have bowed down, but the image. Bow down before this guy and say to yourself, say to him, you are the divine, come in this form to teach me a lesson, to make me free of hatred. Offer some flowers at his feet. and then sit down and meditate. First day it was terrible, honestly. Second day it was worse. After 2 days, the frequency of this man became less. And after some time he disappeared. I think the image thought that what is the point of going getting flowers? This guy is not getting irritated. You let go of him. So I was on. So I'm just giving you an example. So you understand what I mean by restraint. Now it may mean different things to different people because we all live under different circumstances. All I'm saying is hold. And restraining talk, how do you restrain talk? Before you say something, just hold on for a moment and think, what am I going to say? 1, to whom am I going to say this? 3, are these the right circumstances to say it? 3 things. Before you say, before you blurt out, because 90% of the problems in this world we produce by blurting out things which we shouldn't be saying, even though they are true. So just think, is this what am I going to say? And is this the right person to say it?
It seems that the mind and body are against the Brahman, against the contentment. They just want to.
But then you are the Brahman inside. That's your true ID, the Purusha. Don't want to call it Brahman. Let's say the Purusha. Because I love the Sankhyas. So Purusha. So that's also part of you, and that's the most important part of you, and without which neither the mind nor the body can function. So think about it sometimes.
Master, it is very humbling to see somebody who comes from such a clarity and neutral platform with lack of oriental exaggeration, like you were honored. So I have one question. When it comes to paramuktas like Mahavatar Babaji, with all the sadhanas we do, is it essential to reach such entities?
You can't.
Is it possible? Do they exist?
I can tell you this thing. Babaji, beings like Babaji are there not to make us, not because we have to see them. People come to me and say that we need to take Kriya. So I said, okay. So after 1 week they say, so how do we see Babaji? I said, look, first I don't hold any license. I can't say, okay, this is come and see Babaji. Yeah, I have no such means, to be honest. The other is, you don't take Kriya to see Babaji. Right? You take Kriya so that you can evolve. And by evolve to a great extent. And perhaps when you evolve, you might see him or you may not see him. That seeing is not important. You see, people have this, and then people have gone so far that they imagine sometimes. The other day somebody told me he saw Babaji in the toilet near the window. I said, oh God. I said, then why have you come to me? You're lucky guys. So, that's not important at all. However, Babaji has given some guidelines. Follow them in your life. And then evolve and reach a spiritual stature. When you reach there, then you can decide you really want to see him or you don't want to see him. It makes no sense.
Gurudev, when will you write?
1 second, sir.
Gurudev, when will you write Himalayan Master 2? We are
2?
expecting, yes.
Oh, there is only one, but what he means is there a follow-up to the autobiography, which you are keeping with you? Yes, there is a follow-up. I am writing the second part, but the second part, you can't actually say it's a follow-up. When I ended the last chapter of my autobiography, I said, the journey continues. So it's a continuing journey. So I have, in the autobiography which some of you would have read, I haven't put many things in. It's the tip of the iceberg, let's put it that way. Yes. You can't work everything into one book. It's impossible. So There are many things which I haven't discussed, which I am trying to discuss in the next part. Things about practices, experiences, maybe past lives, you have to see it, and so on. So this is the second part, and since you asked this very seriously, this is not the first time you're asking me this question. I want to tell you a very good news for you, that after the Brighton Bush retreat, I went for 2 days to stay at my friend Jerry Jones' beach house. And in the beach house, since I had nothing else to do, I wrote, and it is finished. It's over. So I have to send it to the publisher, and it will take another 3 months for them to put it through the process and get it out. So it's done. I still haven't decided about the title, because I certainly don't want to call it Autobiography Part 2. So I don't know what title is going to be, but let me tell you, the contents are a little different from the autobiography. In the autobiography, there is a chronological order. I start as a young boy and I grow up and so on. In this, there is no chronological order, which means each page is independent. Each chapter is independent by itself. So you can read the last chapter first or the first chapter first. It's like a collection of complete stories in each chapter. Sometimes you will find me talking about some distant memories of my distant past. And the next chapter you might hear me talking about what happened with Babaji in this life. So it's like a collection of memoirs with no chronological order. I'm saying all this because you asked me. I'm not trying to sell the book, please. There's somebody put up his hand at the last. Yeah.
We follow the rituals we practice, right? So for each and every ritual we follow, to give the scientific reasons to our kids?
Not required. Not required. See, you can't now go and dig in and find out what are the scientific reasons. If a certain ritual keeps your mind centered and completely occupied for some time, that is good enough. As long as it doesn't involve injuring an animal, like a horse sacrifice or something like that.
What happened when they are just doing puja, applying vibhuti?
Sure.
My kid asked me, why you are applying on all the joints? On the day I was not having any answer.
That's true. It is. These are all practices that have come down to us from generations.
Exactly, yeah.
And we're just following them. So you tell him, if somebody asks, if I don't put this on, does it matter to you? Or if I put it on, does it matter to you? I'm following what my forefathers used to do. And vibhuti is ash. And it's a symbol of Shiva, the god of destruction, who's supposed to be living happily many times in the smashan, in the cremation grounds. So it is an indication, a symbol, since you asked me, that we will also finally end up as ashes. Bhasmantam shariram, finally we will all become bhasma. So we're just showing it, okay, here I stand. It's not a war paint.
Really, one more thing I found out after doing some analysis. We apply at joints, right? So I found out that it absorbs the moisture when skin closes here, try to generate some sweat. So it absorbs the moisture and it kills the bacteria which is generating.
Maybe, I don't know. One can also use deodorants for that. If they are available, you can just... Anyway, I'm not making fun of you, sorry. 1 minute. Let me go according to the... Yeah.
So I have two very beautiful children. My 5-year-old still is able to find joy in most situations. But my older one is sort of coming into the ways of the world where...
How old is... How...
11. And if I get this, then I'll be happy. I have to do better than him. So what is the best way to teach children to start thinking about, just your inner happiness, that's important, not what you get?
I know, you can't preach to little children.
Right.
Okay? But children are very sensitive. Okay? So you can't take them for a ride. They're very sensitive. Their eyes are open, their ears are open. The last person you can fool is your own child. Of course, your wife also. Many people ask me, are you always tranquil and peaceful? I said, ask my wife. She lives with me also. So, what I'm trying to say is, they will follow and imitate your life. You don't have to teach them. So if you keep your life simple, they will learn how to do that. That's one thing. The other is, give them small, simple comic books to read. You know those graphic comic books like we have in India, we have Amar Chitra Katha and so on, so that there are these truths expressed in simple stories there. So maybe they'll read that and understand. The main thing is that we follow a life which you would love them to imitate. So if we change, they change. Yeah?
Being kind is something you can demonstrate.
Absolutely. So that should be clear to the kids, that you should be kind. So we should also live like that, and we should also teach them through simple stories, not lectures. And if you get angry and shout at them, it doesn't work.
Okay. We keep talking about the subjugation of ego to attain peace. But in this competitive real world, ego seems to be the very basis for one's survival. How do you reconcile the need for ego to survive in this world, but also its subjugation to attain peace?
Sir, I am also surviving in this world. I am not saying that you can become egoless. I think if somebody says, I have no ego, that's a very terrible statement. Nobody is without an ego. I am only saying, keep your ego good and not negative. Keep your ego good and not negative. Of course, you know it's a competitive world, but don't go into the competitive world with a killer instinct. Understand? Bring it down, because nobody finally achieves anything out of it. So understand this fact and try to live as balanced and as restrained as one can. That's all one can do. Try your best. And develop interest where there is less of the ego play. And if you really are serious about the ego, that you really want to make it pure and good, then you would naturally shift your profession and do something which doesn't do it. If you're not ready to do that, we are still not so serious about it.
My question is with respect to the importance of Guru. So, considering that we are basically dealing with a fairly complicated subject of trying to comprehend the infinite or experience the infinite with our limited senses, I wonder whether it's really possible without the help of someone who has already experienced that. And are there any people who have done that without external help on their own, just by reading books?
Very long question, but I try to make it short. What he means is that is it possible to reach that, whatever we are talking about, without a guru, without a guide, without a teacher who has already experienced it? Because as you said, we are trying to reach that which cannot be reached by the senses through our senses. We can't reach it through the senses, okay? Let's keep that out. Now, the problem arises. Then your last question, let me answer. Has anybody attained it without a teacher? I can give you very few examples, but there are. Ramana Maharshi of Tiruvannamalai had no gurus. At least we know of no gurus. But then probably he had matured to that state through many lives of training, perhaps. That's all you can explain. There's no other explanation. He didn't have a teacher. He didn't have a guru. And I think he didn't want to become anybody's guru. Although people would like to say that he is our guru, but he never initiated anybody. He didn't have a disciple like that. So this is possible, but it is difficult and it's rare. For most people, like anything else, it's a good idea to have someone who has walked the path and who knows where the pitfalls are. It's fortunately, many such people have written about it. So you can start with reading and then figure out whom to approach. Okay? The only unfortunate problem we have is nowadays there are more gurus than disciples. Sad problem. Babaji told me a story of a young man who went to a guru and he said, "Sir, I want to become your disciple, so what am I to do?" He said, "Look, you have to get up early in the morning at 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock? He said, "Yes. And then you have to clean the kuti where you live, and also mine. Okay. Then bring water from the Ganga. Okay. Then cut firewood. Okay. Then do your yogasanas for 45 minutes. Okay." Whether the okay was becoming kind of inaudible. And then what? Then study the Upanishads for 2 hours every day. Okay, he said, "1 minute, sir, this is getting little beyond me. What does it, what should one do to become a guru?" He said, "Nothing, just sit and bless." "Why don't you make me a guru, sir? I don't want to." So nowadays that problem is very much there. I always, even when somebody takes Kriya Yoga from me, I tell them, "Look, please don't go around teaching. You yourself don't know what you're doing. It takes time before you mature. So tomorrow you take Kriya, then you go and then on this 3rd week you set up shop. And you say, "Who taught you Kriya?" "Shriyam." "Oh, okay, fine." And then it's very cheap, $3,000. So this setting up shop has become very popular. So you have to be very careful with it. My understanding is, if you are sincerely seeking, then the guide who is for you will somehow manage to find you. That's my experience. So at the moment, don't worry about that and don't run around looking. And especially don't be impressed by external looks. Be with the person for a while and decide. And find out if he wants to give something to you or he wants your checkbook. Decide all these things carefully. Meanwhile, read the literature available on the subject. There are lots. Keep reading. And when you are really serious and sincere, I can tell you that you will find a teacher. Now, who shall I ask? There are 1, 2, 3, 4. Because I found him younger than him.
So what's so special about the Himalayas? I mean, so many people go there for enlightenment, right? Guru Gobind Singh Ji, even you, sir. So what's so special about it?
Well, it's like this. The Himalayas has been the seat of great rishis from time immemorial. And from my understanding, there still are some great yogis there. That they are not known to the outside world doesn't mean anything. Because the unknown ones are much greater than any known ones. So there is this atmosphere there, which is because of the great rishis, which is why people go there and meditate. Apart from the fact that the upper Himalayas are one of the most beautiful of all places in the world that I've seen. And beauty and quietness and isolation bring about a certain change in the mind. Apart from the rishis. Okay, leave them alone for the time being. And I have personally felt, and people who have walked with me up the Himalayas have felt, after a certain while, when there are not too many tourists and people going to Char Dham and rushing up and down, you go to the upper Himalayas, where everything is quiet and nice, you automatically feel meditative. It's nothing to do with the low oxygen levels, please. If you want to disprove that, you can take an oxygen cylinder and take as much oxygen as you like. But it does make a difference when you go up there, which is why people have been going there for years. I know places in the Himalayas which are not on the tourist circuit, for instance, which are really beautiful places where you can feel something going on. Lady, no gender discrimination.
I want to ask you about past lives. Are they really important to know? And do you have vasanas from past lives? Is it really important to know that what you are here and why you are here is because of the karmas you've done in your past lives?
Well, it's not really important to know. It may be in the sense that if you suddenly feel that there are some qualities in you, some habits in you, which you are not able to break free of, perhaps there is a link in the past. That way it might be useful to know. But knowing your past life is not so easy. However, a person who is intent on sadhana, who wants to reach the truth, need not necessarily know all his past lives. He need not start with that. But as you go along, because you are going into subtler and subtler parts of your mind and consciousness, it's quite possible that in the process you might discover something which probably gives you a hint of your past life. But there is no need for a deliberate attempt to find your past life. I'm especially saying this because nowadays people have things like regression therapy and so on, which is basically hypnosis. Now in a hypnotic state, if I tell you you were the king of Rajasthan in 2000, you will believe it because your mind is so sensitive at that time. Well, if it helps you therapeutically, good, but you can't base 100% belief in that, right? I think yogis discover their past lives themselves, not somebody trying to make them discover. So, but it's not important. In the process, if you discover, there is no need to discard. It's 10:30, Naresh. Two snakes in Gujarati or Hindi? And I don't know whether we should discuss this subject here. He said, why is there so much importance to snakes in Indian culture? Question 1. Question 2 is, was Shiva a Naga? I suggest that you read my autobiography and go to the chapter on the Nagas. And I have given many explanations which will probably satisfy you. So go through that. As far as Shiva is concerned, from my understanding, Shiva is a symbolic representation of the concept of a great yogi with his third eye open. And the snake on Shiva is the coiled energy of Shakti called the Kundalini. So, it's like that. Will you please read the book?
So, what is the difference between Soham meditation that is explained in one of your books and Hamsa, which you explained today? And second is how to learn it.
How to?
How do I learn to do it properly?
So I just explained to somebody here, Hamsa. To whom did I explain it? Somebody asked me, I said Hamsa. Okay. So it doesn't matter whether you say Soham or Hamsa. It doesn't matter. It's both the same. It's hum saw or so hum. The easiest way to practice, as I said, was to give complete attention to your breath, and when you inhale, in your mind chant hum, and when you exhale, in your mind chant saw. So when you go in, it is hum, when you go out, it is saw. So stick to that for a while without counting, with complete attention on the hum and the saw. Now today, since we live in a technological world, I would even suggest that you tape hum saw in a whatever and keep 2 headphones in your earphones, and while you breathe in and breathe out, adjust the hum saw to those, your inhalation and exhalation, so that you don't even have to chant it mentally. Remain as long as you can in that position. This is the best way to start. It doesn't matter. If you like to say hum saw, that's fine. If you like to say so hum, that's also fine. I think I'll take one more question.
Can we take a couple of questions online?
On?
Online, people are asking questions.
So what do we do to people who are in front of us?
They're also seeing the lights.
Oh, I didn't know that. So they're seeing all these antics live? Okay. Sir, I'll answer those questions. Yeah.
So this is a question from Amit Desai.
From?
Amit Desai.
Okay.
He asks, what's the importance of food in sadhana, and how is it possible for a working professional who work 12 hours outside of home? What is the solution?
I personally travel all over the world and sometimes work 24 hours a day, and have had no problems with having vegetarian food anywhere. If you think vegetarian food is only made in a certain way, you run into trouble. But if you don't mind and you like to eat food which is nutritious and at the same time available to us without killing animals, I think you can find it anywhere in the world. I have survived in Rome, in many parts of Italy. Pasta is wonderful. Okay, so that should not be a problem at all. For me, it has never been a problem. I have traveled all over the world, and except maybe in some parts of Germany, I haven't had much difficulty in eating simple food which comes without killing animals, or it's vegetarian food. So it's not a problem at all. You can manage. Sometimes you have to forego the particular taste that you want. Please also tell him that nowadays there is, you know what is a jackfruit? I don't think you have jackfruit here. Do you? Not durian. Jack. Okay. Now the green jackfruit. If Mr. Desai is not a vegetarian, and if he loves the taste of chicken, green jackfruit cooked in a particular way tastes just like chicken, or also feels like it. And then there is tofu of all kinds. So I think it's possible.
His follow-up is also, is hotel food good for sadhana? Is hotel food good for sadhana?
The best thing is to have your own food, but if you can't, then what do you do? Hotel food. Well, I go to Saravana Bhava. So now I have to ask somebody here. It's not just online, yeah.
What are your thoughts on ambition? Does ambition necessarily contradict with the spiritual life? How do you approach it?
Look, if your ambition is to, you have to think what the ambition is about. Ambition as a person who desires to have spiritual fulfillment also has ambition. It's not that he doesn't have ambition. That is also an ambition. In fact, highest ambition. I'm not worried about all this. I have to find that. It's the greatest of ambition. So ambition per se is not a wrong word. What is your ambition? In your ambition, are you going to grind others below your feet? Or in your ambition, are you going to hurt others? In your ambition, are you going to create problems for others? These are the things that have to be looked at. With also the understanding that whatever you make in this world is not going to bring about complete satisfaction. You might think so, but when you reach there, no. So I think it's better to have a spiritual ambition. Ambition per se is not a bad word. It's how you put it through. How it is less selfish than more selfish. That is an important point to note. Suppose I am married and I have children and I have this great ambition of becoming something, and in the process I want to neglect my house and my children then that ambition is, we have to examine a little carefully. Am I right in having this ambition or not? Because the criteria here is humanity. Sir?
Sir, namaste. I am Dr. Maksud Ahmad, practicing medicine. I am 69 years old.
1 year older than.
Excuse me?
1 year older than.
All throughout my life, I have been searching for God. And I have been doing some sort of a research philosophically, reading all the religions and trying to absorb the essence of all the religions. Finally, I believed in one philosophy, that God is truth. And truth can be obtained only by probing. And the only department in human life that probes truth is science. And being a person of scientific temperament is the best religion according to me. And I respect all people's faiths, religions and their lifestyle. At the same time, I think to bring on harmony and peace in the society or community or in the whole human race, one should first develop a scientific temperament and discard and dispel all superstitions. What is your view on this? I just want to.
You're right. I thought it was a question, it was a statement. So I accept it. And my exploration has also been pretty scientific. Only thing is, when you say scientific, in quotes, it need not necessarily mean only physical science. There are much more other things to look into. Like, physical science is only one aspect of it. There is psychology, there is neurology, there are many science related to that. So when you say scientific, normally what people mean by science, you may not be saying that, mean by scientific is something which I can put in the test tube and check. Can you put love in a test tube? Can't. There's some other things involved in it. So therefore, scientific means to be without prejudice, right? So no scientific discovery has been made by anybody who had prejudice. If I say I know everything, how can I move forward? I can't. So the scientific mindset is the mindset that says, I don't know, so let me find out. If that is the definition of science, I fully agree. One has to move that way. There's no other way out. And let me tell you that much of the exploration into spiritual experiences that have been had for a long time by great sages have all been very scientifically coordinated, step by step. So I agree with you. I think it is very important that we don't get sidelined and go in the proper direction. In this context, what is your discipline as a doctor? What do you practice?
I'm a general practitioner.
General. Very difficult to come by nowadays. Everybody is a specialist. So anyway, in this matter, I want to tell you that I'm myself working on a book which might be which might appeal to people who say that we are very scientific and so on. And that is, this is not the title of the book, but it is the subject matter of the book. I have not decided on the title. I have just done about 4 chapters. I am still working on it. It's called The Neurological Basis of Mystical Experience. So I am working at it from the point of view of the different centers in the brain and so on and so forth. So when it comes out, I would like you to go through the manuscript and make some suggestions if you have. Thank you.
So my question is on decision making. Every second we make decisions, and the mind has its own thought process, dislikes, likes, and all that. And then plus you are in an environment where many other thought processes and energies are coming across. So what is the best process to make the right decision for you, and that gives you the most peace at every second?
The right process of making a decision depends upon what you think is right, first of all. Because a decision is to be taken after a great deal of thought, not suddenly on the spot at the moment. So now this is a subject to do with psychology, of which I am not a big expert. However, when I want to take a decision, I just take a decision not concerned about what travails and difficulties I have to go through to achieve it. When I was at the age of 19, I had to take this quick decision on whether I should go to the Himalayas or stay on here. Both were open to me. I'm giving you an example. Both were open to me. If I had stayed on, I would have become a big businessman, joining my father's construction business. I would have married at the age of 18 and by now had a dozen or more children. This whole thing is what I would have done. Believe me, in those days, there still were Studebakers and Cadillacs in India, if you can afford it. That would have been my life. Why? I decided that I want to find out the truth. I want to go up the Himalayas. Now you see the decision. On one hand, what I want to do is difficult. I know that I have to go through the unknown. I have to go through many sorrows and many problems. However, if I take the other decision, it's very simple. I just have to stay. Why did I take that decision? Because that was the most important thing in my life and in my mind at that point of time. So this, according to me, is what decides what decision you make. Give it a thought. Don't take quick decisions without thinking about the pros and the cons. I've given an example in my life. So, any online? Okay. I think this will be the last question. No, but there are 2 people.
So I have a question. So what's your thought on destiny?
Sir?
Destiny. You said decision making. This lady asked you about decision making. What's your thought on destiny?
Sir, I think that when we try things and it doesn't work, we like to call it destiny. And it's such a thing because some people take it very easily and they're so lazy and they don't want to attempt anything and they say this is destiny. Stay there. I have spent all my life fighting, and I don't think that one should fall in that trap of destiny. It's a word we use and nothing works. So we should always open our mind and try to work on. If constantly you work and it doesn't work, then it is possibly you have not done the proper thing. Or the situations are not so. Or it may be destiny. That is the last thing one should think of. See, you look at all the people who have made their lives, if they had thought about destiny and sat, they would have done nothing, including scientists. So.
Yeah, how do I know that I am making progress, and how bothered should I be with a by a potentially better path than what I am currently doing?
Right. Suppose you plant a sapling, right? Today you have planted a sapling. Do you think it will grow up to be a beautiful tree if every night you pull it out and check how much the roots are? No. So leave it for a while. It takes time. Like we said, when you plant a seed, it takes many years to grow into a big tree. Give it the proper nourishment, look after it, but don't keep checking on it. Okay? And from the spiritual point of view, one of the things, there are 2 things which you should note to see if you are progressing. One is, have you developed the capacity for one-pointed attention? Is your mind still getting distracted? It could be even worldly things. Let's not make a distinction between worldly and spiritual. Here I am saying one-pointed attention. Suppose I am doing something, is my mind getting distracted or not? If it is getting less distracted, that means I am moving properly. Now from the character point of view, psychological point of view, if I am progressing, I will certainly be kinder, forgiving, peaceful, and more tranquil than I was before. There are 2 things you have to watch out. If this is not happening, even if you have the most brilliant visions, you are still not walking on the path. Nobody can have as brilliant visions as the LSD addict. Do you think he's a yogi? No. So, this is what we have to do. Now, I have one more question I can take. Yes. Is it possible to break away from?
From this point onwards, the only thing that we can possibly do is that we can't activate karma, or is it that going to